Welcome to the December 21st meeting of the City Council. I'm Marty Baker, President of Council. Please silence your electronic devices for the duration of the meeting. We will begin with the invocation by Mr. John Schweizer, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand.
Heavenly Father, we look for your guidance as we close out another year and begin another. Help us to keep those resolutions that allow us to come together in your peace. As we deliberate our city's future, show us your wisdom so that our children may enjoy all that we have and appreciate today. Watch over all those who cannot be home with their families this holiday season so that we may enjoy the freedoms they protect. We pray that you watch over the brave first responders so they may also return home to those that love them. To all this we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mrs. Knight, please call the roll.
Mr. Clark?
Here.
Mr. Tremblay?
Here.
Mr. Kendall?
Here.
Mr. Swayzer?
Here.
Mrs. Snee?
Here.
Mr. Twist?
Here.
Mr. Phillips?
Here.
Mr. Heath?
Here.
Mrs. Oda?
Move to excuse Mrs. Oda.
Second.
It's been moved by Mrs. Snee and seconded by Mr. Clark to excuse Mrs. Oda. Mrs. Knight, please call the roll.
Mr. Tremblay?
Yes.
Mr. Kendall?
Yes.
Mr. Swayzer?
Yes.
Mrs. Snee?
Yes.
Mr. Twist?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Heath?
Yes.
Mr. Clark?
Yes.
Mrs. Oda is excused.
Mrs. Knight, please read a summary of the minutes of the December 7th, 2015 meeting.
Minutes of Council, December 7, 2015. A public hearing was held on ordinance number 041, 2015. An executive session was held with council returning from executive session at 7:45 p.m. Committee reports. Finance Committee recommended the adoption of the 2016 budget, and also that included authorizing funding for Troy Development Council, Troy Main Street, and the Troy Recreation Association, Inc. Law and Ordinance Committee recommended legislation be prepared to authorize the law director to designate assistant law directors and staff, and authorize the Director of Public Service and Safety to enter into an agreement with Shipman, Dixon, and Livingston Company in regard to such appointments. Committee recommends legislation be prepared to continue Troy's membership in the Business First program. Personnel Committee reported regarding recommending legislation be prepared to extend the duty injury leave for an employee. Streets and Sidewalks Committee recommended legislation be prepared authorizing an agreement with LJB of Dayton, Ohio for the design of the McCaig Road Improvement Project. Utilities Committee recommends that legislation be prepared to enter into a professional services agreement with the firm of EMH&T related to additional design costs for the water tower, and also to have for the construction phase of the tower. Committee recommends legislation be prepared authorizing a 10-year street lighting agreement with Miami Valley Lighting, LLC. Committee recommended legislation be prepared to establish an option for city utility customers to pay utility bills online by credit card. Resolution number R62, 2015, contract with Troy Recreation Association, first reading and adopted. Resolution number R63, 2015, funding to Troy Main Street, first reading and adopted. Resolution number R64, funding to Troy Development Council, first reading and adopted. Resolution R65, extending duty injury leave for an employee, first reading and adopted. Resolution number R66, 2015, provision of legal services for the city, first reading and adopted. Resolution number R67, 2015, execute an agreement related to Business First, first reading and adopted. Resolution number R68, agreement for online credit card payment option for payment of utility bills, first reading and adopted. Resolution number R69, 2015, agreement with LJB Inc. regarding McCaig Road Improvement Phase 3 design, first reading and adopted. Resolution number R70, 2015, street lighting agreement with Miami Valley Lighting for 10 years was given first reading and was adopted. Resolution number R71, 2015, agreement with EMH&T of Columbus for additional design services for water tower, was given first reading and was adopted. Resolution number R-72, 2015, agreement with the FOP, Ohio Labor Council, Police Officers Association, first reading and adopted. Resolution number R-73, 2015, agreement with FOP, Ohio Labor Council, Inc., Troy Sergeants Association, first reading and adopted. Ordinance O-41, 2015, amending the general plan portion of Stonebridge Meadows Plan Development, was given public hearing and second reading. Ordinance O-42, 2015, appropriating funds for 2016, which is budget adoption, first reading and adopted. Ordinance number O-43, 2015, reappropriation of funds for the end of the year for 2015, first reading and adopted. Ordinance number O-44, 2015, establishing wages of certain employees, first reading and adopted. Ordinance number O-45, 2015, establishing wages of certain employees, first reading and adopted. Ordinance number O-46, 2015, establishing wages for certain employees, first reading and adopted. Following various comments, council adjourned at 8:30 p.m.
Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes?
Move to accept the minutes as read.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Clark and seconded by Mr. Twist to accept the minutes. Mrs. Knight, please call the roll.
Mr. Kendall?
Yes.
Mr. Swazer?
Yes.
Mrs. Sneed?
Yes.
Mr. Twist?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Heath? Mr. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Tremblay?
Yes.
Minutes are approved.
We'll move on to committee reports. I think our only committee report this evening is from the Law and Ordinance Committee and Chairman, Mr. John Schweizer.
Yes, Madam President, we have one. This committee met on December 15th to review the recommendation from Troy Planning Commission that a proposed amendment to the general plan of the Stonebridge Meadows PD be approved. We noted the comments made at the December 7 public hearing and recognized that the developer made changes to the covenants, conditions, and restrictions, the CC&Rs, that were not as the development was originally presented, and that similar changes could be made in the future unless there was a provision that would require such changes to be considered by council. It is a recommendation of this committee that ordinance number 041, 2015 be amended to include a provision that changes the CC&Rs after the amendment to declaration of subdivision, establishing covenants, conditions, and restrictions the developer filed with the Miami County Recorder in October of 2015 would be subject to council approval, and that amended 041, 2015 be adopted to approve the amendment to the general plan portion of the Stonebridge Meadows Plan Development regarding Phase 4. We note that the amendment would be presented to council at the December 21st meeting, and if approved, the ordinance would not be considered for adoption until the January 4th, 2016 meeting of Troy City Council. And that's respectfully submitted by Mr. Phillips, Ms. Sneed, and myself as chair.
Are there any questions or comments from council?
And oh, go ahead.
Yes, Madam President, I have an amendment to that.
Not at this time, I don't believe.
Okay.
It's
do that
at the time of
got
the
it.
ordinance
Got it.
reading. Okay. Are there any other comments or questions? Thank you, Mr. Schweizer. We now open the meeting to citizen comments. There is a 2-minute time limit at this point in the meeting, and Mr. Livingston is our timekeeper. Does anyone in the audience have any questions or comments related to the agenda items this evening? If so, please come to the microphone and state your name and address before addressing council. Okay, seeing none then, there are no resolutions this evening, so we'll move on to ordinances and continue with ask Mrs. Knight to read ordinance 041, 2015.
Ordinance number 041, 2015, ordinance amending the general plan portion of the Stonebridge Meadows Plan Development. This was recommended for approval by the Troy Planning Commission. This is the third reading.
Okay.
Yes, Madam President, I'd move to amend this ordinance to substitute the following language for the existing language of sections 1 and 2 to read as follows. Section 1, these are for the CC&R for the subdivision, that the general plan portion of the Stonebridge Meadows Plan Development in the city of Troy, Ohio, is hereby conditionally amended in accordance with Exhibit A attached hereto and made a part thereof, or hereof. Section 2, that the condition of the approval and adoption of this amendment is that within 30 days of the effective date of this ordinance, the applicant amends Section 8.2 of the Stonebridge Meadows Subdivision Declaration of Covenants, Conditions, and Restrictions dated November 4, 2012, filed for record on November 8, 2012 in volume 317, page 556 of the official records of Miami County, Ohio, to read as follows. 8.2, reservation of right to amend declaration. Declarant hereby reserves the right at any time and from time to time, with the consent of the City Council of the City of Troy, Ohio, to amend this declaration in such respects as declarant may deem advisable, so as to include any real property hereafter acquired by the declarant and the improvements constructed thereon as part of the subdivision. Declarant further reserves the right from time to time, with the consent of the City Council of the City of Troy, Ohio, to amend this declaration in such respects as declarant may deem advisable, so as to add additional property to the definition of common elements, so that such additional common elements will become subject to all of the terms and conditions of this declaration, including those terms governing the maintenance and control of common elements by the association. This declaration may not be amended in any manner without the consent and approval of the City Council of the City of Troy, Ohio. And there's nothing that follows that. However, I would add that I would implore city staff to look at our CC&Rs and other documents that come forward to have also that City of Troy or the City Council approval as necessary. With that, that is my motion.
Okay. It's been moved by Mr. Phillips and seconded by Mr. Schweizer to amend the ordinance 041, 2015 with substitute language as stated. Mrs. Knight, please call the roll.
Mr. Schweizer?
Yes.
Mrs. Snee?
Yes.
Mr. Twist?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Heath?
Yes.
Mr. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Tremblay?
Yes.
Mr. Kendall?
Yes.
Okay, the ordinance is amended.
Okay, then this will go to another reading. Mrs. Knight, please read ordinance 047, 2015.
Ordinance number 047, 2015, ordinance amending sections of Chapter 141 of the codified ordinances of the City of Troy, Ohio, related to employee benefits and declaring an emergency. Chapter 141 is the benefit provisions for non-bargaining unit employees. These amendments reflect basically those that are in recently approved bargaining unit contracts. First reading.
Are there any questions from council?
Move for suspension.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Clark and seconded by Mr. Schweizer to suspend the rules. Mrs. Knight, please call the roll.
Mrs. Snee?
Yes.
Mr. Twist?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Heath?
Yes.
Mr. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Tremblay?
Yes.
Mr. Kendall?
Yes.
Mr. Swayzer?
Yes.
Move for adoption.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Phillips and seconded by Mr. Kendall to adopt the ordinance. Mrs. Knight, please call the roll.
Mr. Twist?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Heath?
Yes.
Mr. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Tremblay?
Yes.
Mr. Kendall?
Yes.
Mr. Swayzer?
Yes.
Mrs. Snee?
Yes.
Ordinance is adopted.
That completes the business portion of tonight's meeting. Mrs. Knight, are there any communications or announcements?
No, they're not.
Mayor Beamish, do you have comments this evening?
Yes, a number of them, if you will allow me. First of all, you know, this has been a great year, and I thank each and every one of you for your contributions to this community as we move forward to making this even a better community. Received today a couple of announcements I'd like to share with you. One is from the Miami County Veterans Services Association, from the Veterans Serving Veterans. It's a certificate that is presented to all of us as the City of Troy in recognition for our contributions to the veterans here in Miami County. It is a certificate that we received. We'll get a frame for it, and I'll pass it around so you can see it. It just demonstrates that they also appreciate the things that we have done to show our patriotism, not only for the city, but for our state and country. The other announcement I'm happy to make is I received today a check in the mail. It comes from the Troy Foundation's Distribution Committee. They met and they are awarding us $100,000 for the development of the baseball fields adjacent to Duke Park. That's a sizable surprise and gift as we head into the new year. To add to that, in the letter that went with it, and I know Mr. Phillips will be happy to know that they also awarded $30,000 more to the Miracle Field, which is a part of that development. That's $130,000 from the Troy Foundation. Aren't we blessed to have a foundation that cares so much about our community that the distribution committee is willing to give us that kind of funds to help us spur on that development. And I thought you'd like to know that. The check is not in the mail, it is in our hands. So that's a good thing. The last thing I'd like to do is invite our President of Council, Marty Baker, to join me up front as we are going to say goodbye to the services of 3 of our individuals that are gathered tonight around this table. So at this time, Marty, if you'll join me, and we'll try to do this. We're going to do this we have 3 individuals, as I shared. I'm going to stand here, and Mrs. Baker will be here. We're going to start, all 3 have done a wonderful job in this community for many, many years. In different capacities, they've all given of their time, their talents, and certainly they've done their homework and helped us along the way. The first individual I'd like to present a plaque to today is Mr. James R. Livingston. If you could come forward, please. I'll read this. In grateful appreciation for your dedicated service to the city of Troy, all of the citizens in this community, as our Director of Law in the city of Troy, Ohio, January 1 of 2012 to December 31st, still got a couple of days, a few days left, 2015. I'd like to present this plaque in grateful appreciation, not only for the service you've given to us as a city council and the city staff, but for the citizens of all of this county. You've been involved a lot. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mrs. Baker, you might share what you just handed to Jim.
We present them also with their name tags, their name plaques, so that they can keep those as well.
Our next presentation, Mr. Stickle, would you come forward, please? John came on board in June of 2011, and John is our city auditor. Again, John has contributed to the life of this community more than just being our auditor. He did an excellent job. I think that is shown in the many awards that we received in stewardship and finance from the state. And John, I really am proud to know you and both you and Jim. And I'd like to share this. John A. Stickle, in grateful appreciation for your dedicated service to the city of Troy and all the citizens of this community as our auditor, City of Troy, June 6th of 2011, and you still have a few more days, December 31st of 2015. I'd like to present you with this plaque, and I appreciate And now, a 6th-term councilman that's going to be leaving us December 31st. Mr. Clark, would you come forward, please?
Wow.
Alan has obviously been very active in our community in so many different capacities, but he has certainly given his time and talent to this community as a city councilman at large. And Alan, 6 terms. If I figure that out, that's 12 years. That's great service to your community, and plus all the things you did in law enforcement, all the things you did for the Educational Service Center, and continue to do for this great community. So Alan R. Clark, in grateful appreciation of your dedicated service to the city of Troy, Ohio, the citizens of this community, Troy City Council, council member at large, January 1 of 2004 to December 31st of 2015. I ask that you accept this plaque in grateful appreciation for all your service in so many different capacities. Thanks, Alan. All three of our members are certainly going to be active in our community, continue. They will be replaced by Mr. Terwilliger, who's in our audience today as the councilman at large. Mr. Frege will take over as the auditor, and Mr. Kerber will be taking over as our law director come January 1. So we welcome you to our team here on council, and we just hope we continue to move our city forward as we have done. So thank you all, and let's have a great Merry Christmas and certainly a joyous and prosperous New Year. We're off to a good start. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Titterington, do you have comments this evening?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple. Just a reminder that the building is closed at the end of this week, 24th and 25th. Trash and recycling pickup will be on schedule on the 24th, but will be delayed for those that would normally have a Friday pickup. So it will not be picked up on the 25th, but will on the 26th. As in previous years, staff will pick up live, real Christmas trees, as long as they don't have any decorations on them. We will, I suppose we will pick up artificial trees as well, but not grind them up and take them to the dry mill facility. But we will do that. So if they set them out at the curb, then we will pick those up. And lastly, I want to add my thanks to Mr. Livingston, Mr. Stickle, and Mr. Clark. Appreciate their service, working with all of them, and wish them well. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Livingston, any comments this evening?
Madam President, tonight, I'm going to have comments at the end of the meeting for the first time ever. This is my last meeting before retirement, and I just wanted to say that it's been an honor and privilege for me to serve as Troy's Law Director. It's been an interesting experience, and I've enjoyed the job and the people with whom I've worked for the last 4 years. I appreciate the courtesy that has been accorded me and the respect with which I have been treated. I have tried to respond and reciprocate in kind. I know you're going to enjoy working again with my predecessor and my successor, Grant Kerber. I know he's going to do a good job for the city. Again, thank you and good luck to you all.
Thank you. Mr. Stickle, comments this evening?
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to thank the mayor, city staff, and council members, and my auditor department staff for the great job they've done during my time here, and wish Mr. Frege well in the future. The auditor's department's in good hands. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I would also like to thank all the city employees for their hard work throughout the entire year. Also, congratulations to Mr. Livingston, Mr. Stickle, and Mr. Clark for all of your service, and greatly appreciate being able to work with all of you. I would also like to congratulate retiring firefighter Mr. Grigsby, who just retired this past week. And then I would also like to wish everyone a season's greetings, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to all the citizens of Troy. Thank you. Are there any comments from city council members this evening?
Madam President,
Mr. Clark.
thank you. I would also like to say it's been an honor and a privilege to work for the citizens of Troy. Public service, in my opinion, is the highest calling, and I just think it's been a true honor to serve the community in all of my aspects, and I will miss it, but it's time to move on. As somebody told me, everybody has a shelf life, and my wife has said, our grandchildren are calling and our kids are calling, and it's time to move on. I would really like to thank, it's been a pleasure working with the mayor and everyone on staff here and other fellow council people. It's just been a true pleasure, and everybody works for the people. You know, they don't work for the city, they work for the people, and the people up here understand that. And so, despite what some people think, it truly is a matter of due diligence, and we all understand that. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Comments from other council members? Any comments from city staff this evening? Anyone else in the audience have any comments this evening? Thank you all for attending tonight's meeting. Have a safe and peace-filled week. Meeting